the activists, the civil rights, the struggling parents, the families, the teachers, the students that are realizing that a system built to divide, impoverish, and destroy us cannot stand if we do it. All right? It's kind of basic mathematics.
If you hear me, could you feel me, could you free me? Wonder if I made a difference or made a difference. But that we are the difference. We ain't got no code to decipher. Brother, I would never call you trife. You my brother, though they knife and fork our meals, then cop the silly feels. Yep, it's slimy, kinda grimy, miscalculated the timing. But you can plagiarize something in the skies and think we have no eyes to see something real as we. This is seriously who we be. See, this here is true indeed, the real deal, thoroughbred, like collard greens and cornbread. Can't recite what's never said, purpose keeps us fed. Real man, this is brand A, hope fed. But still, you are my brother, above you there's no other. Blood or something other, more like what the blood covers. Man, no matter what they say, we good over this way. This is positivity in the making, helping brothers to break through. Without breaking, without breaking, without breaking, without breaking. What's going on? What's going on, everybody? It's Thursday, so you know what that means.
Brother Empowerment Day.
And if this is your very first time watching our show, Brother Empowerment is not one of those bashing shows, but this is an opportunity for us to have a healthy conversation, uplifting our brothers and their families, and hoping that something that is discussed, they can take away and make a positive impact in their life and their community. Okay, so you guys already know that we have a special guest, and we've already told you that we're going to be talking with special guests. And we already talked about that we're going to have a special discussion tonight. So we definitely want to get into that. But before we get into that discussion, bro, how's your first week of 2021? Amazing, right?
Yes. Yeah, it's been, the holidays were good. I took the last week of the year off. So the whole week, was the whole week of New Year's, I was really just had to myself to do whatever I wanted to do, literally. So
I'm jealous, by the way.
Man, I
worked. He didn't work, but yeah.
I'm gonna make that a practice. I have never, in my professional career, I've never taken more than 2 days off that didn't run into a weekend. But taking a whole week was so relaxing. So I can see now why people just take a week and say, "I'll see y'all next week. I'm out of here." So, but yeah, no, the first week has been really, really dope, and I'm glad 2020 is gone. Even though it wasn't all bad, I'm glad 2020 is out of here and in the books. You know, but no, it's been a lot of reflecting. This year will mark, well, in June will mark 4 years of therapy for me, going to therapy on a weekly basis.
Congratulations, bro.
Yeah, so thank you, man. So yeah, it's been a whole lot of conversations, whole lot of reflecting, and really just 10 toes down for this year. I've started already putting some things in motion. So it's been a good week, man, for real. I'm glad to be back, though. I'll tell you that much. I am glad to be back. This is Thursday's my second favorite day of the week, and this is the reason why. So I'm glad to be back. So what about you, bro?
This week has been interesting. You know, starting with yesterday, but because of that happened, it seemed very similar to when we had to address the Ahmaud Arbery situation, the George Floyd, and all of that, where I'm glad that we have something in place where people can say, okay, I know who to call, but at the same time, it is kind of hurtful to witness people in a level of distress. So today was actually busy. I started off not feeling well, but I had to put that aside. Been on WRL twice today.
Yeah, bro. Congratulations on that, my brother.
Third wardrobe change. But no, it was great to actually talk about some of the things that really impact our community. But most importantly, have a conversation to let people know we're not an activist group.
Yeah.
We're not that. But we do provide education and hoping to bridge some of that separation. So I definitely had an opportunity to make that clarification the second time we aired, because I don't want people to misconstrue what we do.
Right.
But I'm actually excited because we had a conversation, Cordell and I had a conversation, and we talked about, you know what, I ended it with healing forward. And he was like, bro, We need to release that.
Yes.
And that's what we did. And lo and behold, we didn't know that was going to set the tone for the week.
Yeah.
Because that seemed like the one thing that we need to do is healing forward. And then tonight, they even talked about moving forward together. So I'm like, ooh, this kind of creepy. But we're not going to talk about all of that because we have some amazing guests on, and I want to give them an opportunity to introduce themselves. Yes, I'm Southern, so we're going to have the lady to go first, gentlemen. I'm sure you don't mind. So, Carla, tell me who you are.
Hi, I am Carla, and I met Dwayne several years ago through some acting that we did together. And I'm an English teacher here in Wake County in one of the local high schools. So I'm very happy to be here.
Do you consider yourself an activist?
I do consider myself an activist.
Right.
I have an initiative that my friend and I started to educate people about social injustice. And so I am very passionate about everything that we're going to talk about tonight.
Awesome sauce. Thank you.
Yeah, definitely.
So, Sean, you up there at the top right?
I'm Sean Bates. I became friends with Jay through Ed Dudley probably about 9 months ago now, and I had a little bit of an existential crisis when all the stuff started going down. So I reached out to Ed and bombarded him with a lot of questions because I had a lot of questions. And he said, you know, you really need to talk to my buddy Jay, and Jay can help you sort through this. So I'm pretty sure I've sent Jay at least one text and a question every day. I think I might have missed 2 in 9 months. So I have a lot of questions, but through that process, I've made a great friend. So I'm just happy to be on and really like the community that Jay's been able to create, because it gives, at least for someone like me, a place to ask real questions on how we're going to try and fix things without trying to sit these little 30-second snidbits on gotchas. So I really appreciate it.
That's excellent. It's nice to meet you, Sean, from YouTube land.
Nice to meet you, Cordell.
Emanuel is on you. Oh, I had to say your name. Like I'm waiting.
Okay, yeah, my name is Emanuel Holland. I met Jay by, I guess, working in the community, the type of work that we both do. I guess we were bound to cross paths, but we were on the Cultural Arts Society of Fuquay Varina, where we do some great work in the community when it comes to an attempt to eliminate social injustices and just making sure that people are well aware of different cultures. I am a pastor of a small ministry. You know what? I'm not even going to say small ministry. I'm a pastor of a ministry where we impact lives. And I guess I started or got my foot in the community by way of youth sports. My children, you know, most children play youth sports, most boys anyway. And so had an opportunity to spend time with them as well as their friends. And I coached them and their friends when they were like, I want to say 8, 9, 10 years old. And so now some of them are young adults and they know me as Coach E. So it's quite interesting watching these young men transition from elementary to junior high school, and some of them are going on to college and they're starting families. So it's quite interesting.
Absolutely.
So, bro, thank you guys. And I'm so excited because we are going to talk about it. Everyone, we're going to talk about it. So that I struggle with even what to call it. I feel like one of them old back in the day grandmothers when, you know, when somebody got in trouble. So I just been calling it the incident. We're going to talk about the incident from yesterday. But before we do that, we want to recognize our people that are viewing us from YouTube land and Facebook. You got the people, bro?
Let's see here. So who we have? We have quite a few. If I don't get you, please leave us a comment in the comment section so we can shout you out. So we have, of course, we have my sister Lita is on. Hey, sis. We have Tara is on.
Tara.
We have Regina Lloyd who's on. We have Lakeisha Galloway.
That's Reginald Lloyd.
That's right. That's what I said. Reginald.
You said Regina.
Oh, excuse me. My bad. Excuse me, Reginald. Excuse me. Reginald Lloyd. My
Regina
bad.
LD Lloyd is on.
My bad. So Reginald Lloyd. My bad. Lakeisha Galloway.
She's a Zeta. My soror. So I just want to say that.
Okay, yeah, I was gonna say I'm not Greek at all. We have Peaches is on.
Hey, Peaches.
We have Nikita.
Hey, Nikita. She said she didn't even know we existed.
Oh, wow.
I mean, this live existed.
Oh,
so,
okay.
Nikita, we glad you tuned in.
Yeah, definitely. We have who else we have? We have Kimberly Hines Winboard is on. Hey, Kim. We have Al is on. Al Howard.
What's going on, brother?
We got Felicia Bagley. Hello.
Hello.
Deshaun is on. What's up, bro?
We got Deshaun on.
Good to see you again, man. Let's see. That's all I can see. So
I thought we had
Rashia is on. Hey, Rashia.
We got our cousin on.
Hey, what's up, cousin Antoine?
He's y'all cousin too. Okay. So some of the things, guys, we know the incident that happened yesterday, but before we get into all of the details surrounding that, look, just in time, Superman flew in the building.
Oh, what's up, Kerwin, man? What's going on, bro?
He is always out doing some type of say something. You're muted now. So why he getting that? Nope, we can't hear you yet. Why are we getting that together? Kerwin is not a guest per se because he's one of the collaborators with Brother Empowerment, but he does a lot of activism in the community. So whenever he has time to come in, we always make time for him. But he is actually one of the leaders of the Brother Empowerment movement. So we actually speak regularly. He's just not on as frequently as Cordell and I.
Yeah, that's correct. See, we also got Nichelle is on. Hey, Shell. And we also have Sherry is on. Hey, Sherry.
Don't scare your see, look, here she go. So the incident that happened, the very first thing that we want to make sure that people are aware of is that we're thinking 360. This situation affected a lot more people than we may sometimes think about. And one of the things I think is working out, Kerwin.
Is it working?
Yeah, we got
hear you perfectly.
Dang.
We hear you perfectly. You to my name.
It took a lot. It took a lot.
So one of the things we want to talk about first, for those who are trying to figure out what to talk to your children about, my wife and I have two girls who are 9 and 11, and we had the conversation with them today. And thankfully, we reside in Wake County, and they did send out some great talk points. And I want to share them with you guys in case you're wondering, how do I engage in a conversation with my children about this situation? The very first thing that they talked about was limited exposure to television, news, and social media. You kind of want to make sure that they can handle it and not give them an overdose. One of the other things is try to keep your routine as normal as possible. Kids gain security from the predictability of routine, including school. Fortunately for us, our kids didn't even know because they don't watch television. So it was a great opportunity for us to introduce this and have this dialogue with them. Another thing is be honest with your kids and share with them as much information as they are developmentally able to handle. Do not answer questions that you that have not been asked. Sometimes we will anticipate an issue and it may not even be one because the kids are not even thinking on that wavelength. So let's not overdo it with that one. And then the other one is listen. Listen to your kids. If they have concerns, if they have any fears, you want to definitely listen to them. Now, Carla, I want to yield it over to you because I know you work exclusively in the school system. Is there anything you wanted to add to that?
I think all of those are really good points, especially the part about talk to them on a level that they are developmentally ready to handle. So I know a lot of the teachers, not just in Wake County, but probably nationwide today, spent some time today allowing the students to talk about how they were feeling. And we tried to keep the conversation general in the sense that we didn't lead them in any direction, but just giving them time to talk about how they were feeling. I mean, they've been in this pandemic since March. They've been in remote learning, at least for high school, since March. And now we have the incident, as you called it yesterday. This has been a traumatic time for them. So I think it's important that as adults, we keep that in mind.
And I want to say this too, though. This is the second wave, if you will, during this pandemic of certain emotional crisis, if you will, because as soon as the pandemic happened, we were dealing with the Ahmaud Arbery. We were dealing with the George Floyd, Breonna Taylor. It's somebody that I'm missing. It's somebody I'm missing. I can't remember. Excuse me for who I'm missing. But I said George Floyd. I thought it was 4. It's somebody else that came on the tail end. But either way, they had to deal with that, and then we had to deal with the protests. But on top of that, for our children who are of a darker hue, the Black and brown community, they had to deal with another type of label on top of that. Those protests that happened that weren't even at the level that happened with the incident from yesterday were labeled as terrorists, troublemaker. They were called a lot of things by our chief representative, the president of the United States. And whereas yesterday there was a certain level of love and grace that were given to them. So your children may have some questions about their safety or have some questions about how am I being viewed? It is okay to hear them out. Don't try to censor the emotion where it gets to a point where they can't even express themselves. Let them get all of it out. If they holler, if they yell, if they scream, whatever it is, let them get it out first and then address it. Because remember, you are the adult. And we struggle with our emotions as adults. So can you imagine a little one trying to get all of this out on top of feeling a little claustrophobic, feeling a little bit of cabin fever with everything that's going on, and also trying to learn and grow in a world that you're not really sure where you fit in. For those who don't know, we're going to give you just a high level, and we're going to start this discussion however it happens. The DC riots happened yesterday. It was about 90 minutes long. They already have, from when I checked about 30 minutes ago, 55 suspects, and they are looking for more who are being charged with different types of offenses. Then you have 4 that we know of who are dead, but only 1 was actually shot and killed. The other 3, I think, were health-like related type crises that turned morbid. So those are the things that we do know. We also know that the Speaker of the House, Representative Nancy Pelosi, is trying to get Mike Pence to invoke the 25th Amendment to remove the in-place President, Donald J. Trump, from his position before January 20th. So these are the things that we do know. We will talk a little bit about the transcript, but before we get into that part, guys, how are we feeling? How are we doing? What's going on? Don't all jump at once. Let me see what people are saying. Oh, Jacob Blake. Jacob Blake, thank you, Kim.
Jacob Blake.
And then Roger came on and he said, good evening.
What's up, Roderick, bro?
Hey, brother. Okay, so how are we feeling right now?
I'll talk if nobody else wants to. I'll kick it off. I mean, if you want to talk to like the range of emotions that I went through in this, at first I would say I was disgusted, and then I became kind of confused, and then I just kind of stayed confused because I don't know, the videos that a lot of people seen and things that came out. I mean, you had like, at first I was like, I was generally concerned, but then when I saw people dressed up in like costumes and, you know, to your point, you know, you saw like the lack of the response by police and it all looked strange. I mean, it was terrible, and we have a large issue, but I don't know, you know, and the more that you just said and you brought out too, Jay, I just get more and more concerned that instead of de-escalating, we just continue to want to escalate. I think that, yeah, do I want Trump gone? Yeah, but I think we're going to have a lot of these problems without the main focus of what we've been trying to blame this on. And then what do we do? So I would really think that, just have the guy go away into the ether now. Just go. He's going to go away. The longest he's around is 20 days. Don't make more noise to incite people to do more weird things. And let's figure out a path forward. The worst thing you could do to Donald Trump is ignore him. So ignore him. Stop making him the headline, and let's move on and get on and fix things. That's my thought on it. That's my feeling. So basically, you can discuss confusion to, I say, frustration.
Now, you explained the confusion, and I think a lot of us share that confusion, because I was confused too, because I think it was one guy who had on a St. Patrick's Day type attire, and I didn't know what that was about. But what was it discussed about?
Well, the disgust at first, I mean, I supported the protests when they happened, but I don't support, burning buildings or destroying people's businesses or just, for me, I'm a Marine. And so I've seen some things and I know what violence does, and violence is, people go, violence is never the answer. It's like, oh no, it's the answer. It's just, once it's the answer, it's the only answer. And it's an answer you're going to keep getting, and you're not going to like it. So to me, I'm hypersensitive to things when they go violent, because that's when things stop. That's the conversation stops. And I don't want it to get to the point the conversation stops. I'd rather be mad at somebody than somebody be dead. So I was disgusted, because I was hopeful that maybe they would do the peaceful protest, they would leave, and for once we wouldn't have narratives, right? Two different narratives. But instead, we get the violence, we get the stuff that goes on, and then now, it's going to make it more difficult for people to see clearly and try and do what you try to do, Jay, is be tolerant of people's differences, be loving, come from a place of love, and let's have a conversation instead of just yelling and screaming at each other on do this or punish that person or do that. I just don't want to see that from either side right now. I'd rather heal.
Now, Nikita actually shared that same confusion with you. She said, still confused that the Black Lives Matter movement received a different response. She later went on to say maybe it's Trump's purpose to create havoc and create confusion to distract from another motive. What is that motive? She's not really sure. Lolita said that she's very emotional. And Sherry shares the same sentiment with you about, just disgusted, confused, and all of the above. Ricky, who's actually one of our influencers, but also works in an organization with Carla, Be the Heart, Be the Change.
Change the head, change the heart.
Change the head, change the heart. And Ricky helps us with voter education on our end, so he's our influencer there. He said the call to stand down from the president was one of the worst things about the whole ordeal. Tara said that the privilege hit an all-new high. Racism was on undeniable, fully accepted parade. The Confederate flag, not the USA, was waving in the nation's Capitol building. The losing flag against the country was the beacon. The tolerance was at an all-time insulting level. Before we even respond to that, one of the things that we were talking about with WRAL, and first time I got to share a segment with our brother Kerwin Pittman, but he was part of that positive change that happened over the summer and received some of those negative languages. And even at a time, they tried to put some of the blame on him. So, Kerwin, I want to give this over to you, because you actually lived and seen the actual thing. I mean, you were in the moment in real time with both of them. So what does this do for you and the things that you have going on for REP? You individually, but the things that you have for your organization, REPs?
So what this does for me is invoke another string of emotions that kind of reinforce my feelings of already that it is two particular criminal justice system at play right here in America. It's a criminal justice system tailored strictly for white individuals, and it's a criminal justice system tailored for Black and brown minority individuals. And so what we've seen, in my opinion, in my truth, in all honesty, was the criminal justice system and the lack of response at play, because particularly these individuals was white. I mean, I'm gonna be honest with you. I've been at Stop the Steal rallies, counter protesting, and I've been at Black Lives Matter rallies, leading the rallies. And the response are always a stark difference right here in the city of Raleigh. So to see it at the highest level at the nation's capital, and to kind of just let these individuals mosey on in when their intentions from the start was surely, in my opinion, was an insurrection, because they didn't come for no peaceful protesters. From the temperature of how they showed up, in my opinion, because if it was a peaceful protest, it would have kind of stayed peaceful, because nobody was antagonizing them to even storm the Capitol buildings, for one. So that's the difference between the Black Lives Matter movement protesters and this particular insurrection. The Black Lives Matter movements, a lot of the times, they was engaged and antagonized and to doing different things, and then different things was in response to certain things. In my opinion, these individuals showed up to pull a coup d'etat, to overthrow the nation's, to overthrow the government system, and for a split second, it worked. Now, to say they held on to that power, I can't say that. But we're gonna have those pro-Trump supporters and pro-sympathizers who are gonna say no, this wasn't the case. But clearly, anybody with two eyes can see. And anybody with ears could hear what was going on, and you could see the emotions evoked, the response of these individuals, the lack of luster from law enforcement to really stop these individuals. If anybody's seen the picture circulating of when the Black Lives Matter protesters was happening in Washington, D.C., the response of armed forces standing on the steps of this same building versus to kind of ward these individuals off within the Black Lives Matter protests from coming in these buildings, versus the armed response or lack of an armed response we seen yesterday. It is clearly a stark difference, and it is truly disheartening. And for us to move forward, Donald Trump only invokes the emotions that is the underlying current, which is racism, white supremacy in America. That's it. He only invoked that. He is not the underlying current. He only brings it out and invoke that emotion. And so yesterday, what we seen was an invoke of this emotion, and we seen America respond in a way that certain Americans feel that they need to respond. Now, to say it's right, no, but in order for us to move forward, we must honestly acknowledge that there really is a race problem here in America. That's the only way we're gonna move forward. Because if everybody keep not looking at the elephant in the room and saying blaming it on particular individuals and particular situations, and not saying that it's an underlying current period of racism, white supremacy within the whole criminal justice reform and the whole fabric of the foundation of this country, then we're gonna continuously have a problem. It's gonna continuously be Donald Trump. It's gonna continuously be pro-Trump supporters, Southern supporters, the Confederate supporters, etc. So it was a stark difference, and it's kind of it's tiring. It honestly is, but it's a fight we're gonna keep fighting. And until we had that conversation, the individuals be real about the conversation and say, this is what's actually going on. And I know the fabric and the inception of this country was built on racism, white supremacy, and every structure from this system was built on the foundation of this system was built on racism, white supremacy. Then we can't move forward from nowhere. We just sit up here japping our jaws, man. And that's how I feel about it.
Thank you for that, because Antoine actually said he agrees with you. It's really two different realities. He also said it's just a mess, honestly. I want people to acknowledge the difference. How can you do that to the Capitol building while the cops let people in? It's on video.
Yeah.
Felicia, she said anxiety has been at an all-time high. The fact that COVID has taken so many lives, you would think that people would be wanting to promote peace, but rather this incident at the Capitol shows that there is a lack of empathy and compassion for one another. Antoine later came in while you were talking and said the federal charges should be handed out like crazy. Karen Jonah said, from my personal life experiences, I was not really shocked by what happened. people keep saying it's due to white privilege, but it was just regular savage behavior. Ooh, that went deep. And then she said the trend, that's when I said the trend that I see with my own eyes, it makes me so angry, right? But at the same time, I have to control it so I don't get at a hate in my heart for people who do nothing to me, but to the ones that make this okay. And then Lita was saying right on, she supported me. She said, we have to keep talking about it. And Nikita said, take notes from Netflix documentary, The 13th, and it proves the criminal system setup. And then, hey Chanel. We have Chanel on saying, hey, I do agree with you. And I think that that's also why I think activism falls in a large spectrum. And one of the things that Kerwin and I talk a lot about is he's a frontliner. He deals with those things that need to deal with change right away. And then there is a paradigm change that has to take place as well. And we have to all work in tandem. One doesn't take out the other one. We have to work collectively to get that done. Because here's the thing. I agree 100%. Trump uses racism to invoke behaviors. But Trump is at a different level, in my opinion, because I believe that he's a narcissist. He will use whoever. He doesn't discriminate on who he's going to use and abuse to prove his point. Case in point, Mike Pence, the vice president, his running mate was even a target in his speech. And in case people are wondering, but before I do that, because I'm going to pull up the transcript so people... I like to pull up transcripts so we'll have the facts. Emanuel, Carla, what are your thoughts? Because both of y'all are making the same face.
I'm going to talk about the peace part. That because Felicia, I think it's Felicia Bagley, she said something that was important about promoting peace. And I'm pretty sure once we pull up that transcript, if that transcript has anything to do with the words that President Trump used, it's not going to be about peace. And I've been on this side of some of the protests, the peaceful protests, and with the Black Lives Matter, I have yet to hear anyone stand up and promote discord in any of the peaceful protests that I've been part of. But yet, what I heard yesterday, I didn't hear President Trump invoking peace. I heard him sounding the alarm as to, okay, what we're going to do, we're going to leave here. We're going to go on down to the Capitol and make them hear us. But the sad thing about it is that he said that we're going down there and he didn't go. He sent his thugs, his goons to do his bidding, which to me was that's coward. That's a coward to me. And so, I cannot agree that he was promoting peace yesterday. He was promoting discord. And what makes him a coward, more of a coward, is that he demanded his goons and thugs to do something that he didn't want to do.
Carla?
Yeah, well, as I said, I made notes. I have all these things that I was just bursting to say. Going back to a comment from earlier about how we're not listening to one another's conversation. Sorry, again, I have so much to say. I'm trying to decide what to say first. I feel like there has been this whole conversation for 400 plus years that has not been heard. And so when we get to the point where we are today, that we have to have an incident like yesterday that I feel like was a direct response to the Black Lives Movement that we saw last summer and that we saw in 2016 and that we saw earlier than that no one still wants to hear the non-white conversation. No one wants to hear about all the systemic racism, Kerwin, that you mentioned a little while ago. They don't want to acknowledge that every single system we have here in the U.S. was founded on racism. And of course, we have two completely different criminal justice systems because that's the way that it was set up. Even my students, I gave them questions today. I let them respond. I did not lead the conversation. They brought up the fact that there's this great disparity in the way that the terrorists, I'm going to call them terrorists, acted yesterday, as opposed to, and how they were treated, as opposed to how the protesters last summer were treated. They brought up the fact that last summer, police were dressed in full riot gear, that they had the military circling in helicopters and planes last summer for a peaceful rally. And then yesterday, there was virtually no protection. The Anti-Defamation League sent out warnings earlier this week that this could happen, and yet we still don't have appropriate security to prevent this. At first, I thought perhaps it started as a peaceful rally, and then I started getting some more information. It's not a peaceful rally when you bring pipe bombs to it, when you bring Molotov cocktails to it. That's not a peaceful rally. When you bring assault weapons, when you bring nooses, that's not a peaceful rally. And so they had no intention of being peaceful. And so you had this language that our president spouts off to them, and of course that's going to get them stirred up because that's all they've heard for the last 5 years. We've heard him talk about it's going to get wild. We've heard people say, oh, we're going to have a civil war. Well, here you go. And yesterday is the result of that. And so I get really, really fired up about that because I'm upset at the people who try to not necessarily defend that behavior, but deflect and say, oh, well, those weren't really, the Trump supporters weren't really the ones who did this. I mean, did you not watch the same videos that I did? Did you not see the same pictures that I saw? Because what I saw,
ones. They might be the weak ones.
Yeah, I guess so.
But Carla, I will say to your point, thank you for saying the same thing that the Black and brown community have been saying for years. But you also did something that's a little different. Sean did something that's a little different. You put in the work. Mm-hmm. A lot of people don't understand that racism is a paradigm. Racism is a thought. One of the things, guys, if you take advantage of the implicit bias workshop, you'll understand that the mindset of racism, really the person who is coined for coming up with it, really thought they were coming from a good place. The guy really said, kill the Indian, save the man. Meaning he thought that the culture associated with the Native American was lower class and inhumane. So let's do something. Let's reprogram him to be European, to take on our ways. And guess what? A lot of people to this day don't understand what racism really is. It's about not seeing the value in what a person is and what they stand for. So when you can't see the value of a person, you don't see the person. And that's why we're having an argument over Black Lives Matter versus All Lives Matter, because you don't value the Black life to realize that the Black life is saying my life matters too. Not I'm looking for a quality of a better life. I'm just looking to live. And we keep missing that, and they're not comparable. Quality of life is not comparable to a life. And you guys put in the work to understand that, because you could have hide behind the luxury of the lens of saying, I don't understand what we're talking about. I treat everybody the same. I am a good person. I don't discriminate my clients. I don't discriminate with my students. But you put in the work to say, okay, what is the different lens? What is the different lens? How can I look at this as a different way? You really embodied empathy, because guess what you did? You walked in somebody else's shoes, not your own shoes, and dictating what type shoestrings people should put on. And so, before I get there, because I got a little passionate, I feel like Cordell. Let's look at the transcript, and then I'll let you take it away. Cordell, you read it for me, brother?
After this, we're going to walk down, and I'll be there with you. We're going to walk down. We're going to walk down anyone you want. But I think right here, we're going to walk down to the Capitol, and we're going to cheer on our brave senators and congressmen and women. We're probably not going to be cheering so much for them, because you'll never take back our country with weakness. You have to show strength, and you have to be strong. We have to come to demand that Congress do the right thing and only count the electors who have been lawfully slated. Lawfully slated. I know what everyone here will soon be marching over to the Capitol building to peacefully and patriotically make your voices heard. Today, we will see whether Republicans stand strong for integrity of our elections, but whether or not they stand strong for our country. Our country has been under siege for a long time, far longer than this 4-year period. We've set it on a much straighter course. I thought 4 more years. I thought it would be easy. We created. So we're going to walk down Pennsylvania Avenue. I love Pennsylvania Avenue. And we're going to the Capitol, and we're going to try and give the Democrats are hopeless. They're never voting for anything, not even one vote. But we're going to try and give our Republicans, the weak ones, because the strong ones don't need any of our help. We're going to try and give them the kind of pride and boldness that they need to take back our country.
What are your thoughts, bro?
It sounds like some really warped motivational speaking to me. And
I have to apologize for laughing, but listening to somebody else say that man's words and how nonsensical it sounds.
Yeah, I thought there were some parts I really thought I was like, am I saying that right? But no, it's really.
Dude, I was following along with you. I'm like, oh no, it really says that. Oh my Lord, that is so nonsensical.
Yeah, it's really, yeah. I mean, and so it really sounds like I said, some really warped and damaging motivational speaking, but it also really just sounds like someone who just doesn't care at this point. I mean, he's literally on the way out, and he's literally doing anything on his end to really just really prolong the process, holding up Congress, telling them to recount votes, telling certain place that their votes were lost or the process was somehow not done correctly, the election was stolen. So that part to me is just but that's the legacy to me. That's the legacy of Donald Trump's whole presidency, is really just saying anything to keep the attention on himself and really to cast blame and project blame and vitriol on other people. And as far as what happened yesterday, what everyone has been saying is definitely on point. And I really think that we saw selective patriotism on display yesterday. You know, it's one of the things that when you have privileged folks and they I'll say just don't really, there's something's not important, they don't really care about something, especially when it comes to the injustices that are ingrained in the history of this country. It's, love America, America's not perfect, be patriotic, this and that. But then we have some of those same people literally taking up arms and storming the Capitol building, which is supposed to be the epicenter of democracy in this republic, bashing the windows and putting up the flag of terrorists because the Confederate Army were terrorists. They took up arms against the government. So they literally were separationists, seditionists, whatever you want to call them. They were terrorists. So you have you have terrorists supporting other terrorists of yesteryear and really taking up arms and storming the Capitol building.
I really like how you said epic democracy.
Let's be honest with what he just said, because if you think about it, there was a sense of ownership and entitlement.
Yeah.
They stormed the Capitol as if it was theirs. Like, I don't need anybody to let me in. I'm going to just break the door down, do whatever it is that I want to do, climb the wall, scale the wall, and go right on in. Whereas me personally, my skin, my pigmentation, you can see it. There's no way that I would have been able to get 2 miles within the Capitol before we would have been, I feel like I would personally would have been met by an armed guard or an armed police officer. I would not have been able to approach the Capitol in that way.
A bullet.
Yeah. So
you've been met with a bullet.
That's exactly right. So,
and then bullet probably would have been called dog.
Mm-hmm. And so we saw what the majority, if not all of the protesters, or I'm gonna call them terrorists, but we saw what they look like. We saw what they look like, and so like what was said before by pretty much everyone here was there was a certain level, and I agree with there's a certain level of grace, a large level of grace that was extended towards them. And they were basically given the grace and the room to use congressional government buildings as a glorified rage room. And for those of you who don't know, a rage room is where you basically pay to go in and tear stuff apart.
What terrifies me is I agree with everything that you guys say, and that Trump's the bad guy, because he is, right? I just think we need to ignore him. I think what terrifies me is I'm pretty sure Congress is in charge of the Capitol Police, not Trump. So Trump didn't make the decisions for those cops to not show up with enough cops to allow them to come in there. So don't get me wrong. I think, I don't know, a lot of times for me, it feels like I'm a cat and Trump's the laser on the wall. You know what I mean? And like all these things are happening that are around me that are bad, but as long as I'm chasing the laser on the wall, I'm not paying attention to the other things that are actually damaging me. I don't know.
I guess the part that we do have to take into consideration is that regardless of who he is, the office and the position that he holds influences.
Yeah.
Now, I definitely agree that I think some people who have been holding in rage for the longest used him as an excuse to validate their rage, but we have a social responsibility for the offices that we hold. For whatever position you hold, you can't just say loose things. Case in point, Oprah Winfrey was talking about hamburgers and the whole cow industry in Texas came after her. Why? Because of her position. And they're like, no, you can't say that. I can say that hamburgers is nasty, but Oprah Winfrey can't say it because you will shut down a whole industry. Because of his influence and because of his endorsement, he doesn't get the luxury that he had his entire life to say what he wants to say, because now his position has to censor some of his personal feelings because he is the president for the entire United States of America and our territories. And so he has to deal with that. And there is an obligation because he took an oath. And his oath that he took is the office, not the man. It's
I can't defend him.
On Capitol Hill. And
I can't defend him. I just got questions, man.
I didn't say you defend him.
It's like Trump's bad, but Trump's not in charge of those people. Who's in charge of those people, and why were they letting them in and giving them special treatment? Because
it's the office that I'm thinking about. And plus, I've been watching The Crown on Netflix, so it doesn't school me on some things.
But make no mistake about it. Make no mistake about it, right? They say the hottest part of hell is reserved for those who just stood idly by. Right, and so you have the Mitch McConnells, the Lindsey Grahams, Mike Pence, those who just stood idly by and really geeked this man up, put the battery in this man back, and really gave him that sense of power to come out and say these things. And yet, when when the veil is stripped from them, then they hide their hands. And so now we want to condemn them and try to bring out invoke the 25th. But the whole time you was promoting them and you was amping the man up. You was trying to say that the election was illegitimate and all this up until these incidents happening. So now you have to choose a side. And so it's individuals like that. By no means are we letting off the hook. They burned down in flames right with Trump, in my opinion. And I will continue to keep a hot on these individuals and call them out at every instance on a local, state, and national level, because they're in every position of power, every house of position of power, they're in them. So you got to continue to call these individuals out, and we know and understand that Trump cannot be the scapegoat for all of this. No, he can't be. But did he invoke most of this? Yes, he did. But did they put some ideas in his head to invoke this? Yes, they did. Because somebody should have busted his bubble a long time ago. But yet nobody stood up and said it because they just rolled the man coattail, but that's politics when it comes to the same. So with that being said, these individuals should be held accountable, and I hope that the hottest part of hell is reserved for these individuals, as the old prayer would say.
Okay, look, the people in the comments, I'm gonna get you, Carla. The people in the comments been going, and I'm like, ooh, let me get them. Felicia, you don't have to answer. You said, do you think that those running for presidency should be required to have a political professional background portfolio? Do you think this requirement would make a difference in self-conduct? Ricky said, the president reminds me of a renter who gets evicted, then punches holes in the drywall and breaks out the windows in the house before leaving. He isn't about peace. He wants mayhem. A life versus a lost election. Those two things to me are so far apart to even lead to a riot. A life. And then Tara said Trump was an entire response to Obama. Racism is the foundation. We cannot build on top of that. It needs to be cracked and ripped up by the ones that thrive on it. And that is the problem. It works for too many. Oh, she say, stay fired up. I'm tired of seeing killings of people who look like me get killed, black or white, when you do it and get off with paid vacation, even when you are in the wrong. That's something to riot about. A vote or an election and that you're pissed is just crazy to me. I don't know what that was about. I just want to live.
We're talking about, yeah.
Okay, look, we're moving on down to how can you become an ally? We're gonna touch on that. Honestly, on the flip side, I'm glad they showed out yesterday because now we see who the domestic terrorists are. It's hard to fight a ghost. Ooh. It was theirs because Trump was in there. It was like watching a Western with my father. Love your smile, Sean, not flirting. Nobody's talking about it, but man, listen, a guy had documents in his hand from people's office at the Capitol. This does not look good. Who knows what's going to come of this later on? I see your point, Sean. Cheryl said, actually, Trump has the power to bring the National Guard. It wasn't just him, but he lit the match and ignited this movement. Trump didn't make people racist, but he sure did make people more comfortable to show it.
Yeah.
And Cheryl said he had them for his photo op with the Bible. And Tara said, I do appreciate the change of heart of some of the Republicans supporting the objection nonsense. Pence is highly upset. The reason is because for a moment, they felt the fear that Black and Browns felt ever chased and targeted by racists. It's an eye-opener. And others never registered threat because they are deep in love with that mindset. Whew. But a position doesn't change a person. It just gives them a bigger voice. Yeah. That's right, Kerwin. Look, you getting it. And then hiding those hands, though they were the target, switch up quick. Whew. We made it. 4 minutes, and that was a lot that was said. Carla, you was about to say something.
Yeah, I was going to respond to one of Cheryl's comments where she said he had them for his photo op with the Bible. And I talk to my friend Tamara about this all the time because our initiative is based on Christianity. And it really bothers me as a white Christian that I see so many other white people who say that they're Christian who support not not necessarily the actual behavior that happened yesterday, but they support the rhetoric that goes along with it. They support what I see as inflammatory language and encouragement to be violent. And I don't know if they're reading their Bible, but I'm reading mine. And mine says, and I pulled this up today, I won't read the whole thing, but I pulled a passage out of Proverbs for today, and it's from Proverbs 6:12-19. And it talks about a troublemaker and a villain who goes about with a corrupt mouth, who winks maliciously with his eye, signals with his feet, motions with his fingers, who plots evil with deceit in his heart. And it goes on and on and on, but it ends with that person is going to come to destruction. And so I have a problem with Trump trying to appeal to white evangelicals when, you know, obviously he appealed to them with the abortion issue. And I'm not advocating abortion. I'm just saying that seems to be the one thing that everybody gets stuck on. But like my husband said today, when are we going to also care about the people who have already been born? When are we going to do the right thing and not pretend that we're reading the Bible and hold it up for a picture to try to appeal to these Christian radicals? And I use that term loosely because no true Christian that I know would ever behave that way. But they're saying that they believe in one thing, but their behavior does not match that. And I really take issue with that.
Well, let's just be honest. Can I respond to that? Because this is kind of coming down my down my
Go ahead,
Pastor. It's coming down my lane. And I'll just be honest with you. I mean, they're not serving the same God that we serve. You know, I am a firm believer in loving thy neighbor. And a lot of them, they have no love for their neighbor. You know, I just can't, I don't agree with if you have a brother or a sister that is in need, that you're not going to try to tend to that need, that you will allow yourself to get caught up in semantics to the point to where you are following a political party just because of how they feel about abortion. Well, what about loving your neighbor from the cradle to the grave? You know, there's a lot that happens in between there. And so if you go look at Matthew 25, I'm paraphrasing here, it talks about, you know, I was hungry, you fed me. Yeah. You know, I was homeless, you gave me a home. You know, and I'm paraphrasing here. And so when I think about that, I think about loving your neighbor from the very beginning, whether that beginning is in the womb or whether you consider it to be when the child is born. But nevertheless, it's about loving the whole being and not just one part. And so the white evangelicals, they kind of been, you know, I'm very disappointed in them and how they have allowed themselves to kind of somewhat turn the blind eye to the entire Black Lives Matter movement. Because we're not trying, I'm not saying that all life don't matter, but what we're doing is we're trying to bring attention onto the one life, we're bringing attention to the marginalized. Mm-hmm. And truth be told, if you look at the life of Jesus Christ came for the marginalized. As a matter of fact, that's what got him crucified, because he was standing for the marginalized. So you know, those are my thoughts about it.
I thought you was about to mount. I was about to go hang you a towel. but here's the thing, though, guys. I quoted this a lot. One of my favorite letters is the letter from the Birmingham jail. For one, I love how Martin Luther King started off. Seldom do I pause. But he talks about the moderate white. But here's the thing, guys. There are a lot of things that we don't talk about. We talk about racism. We talk about slavery. But we don't talk about the effects that these things have on us and how we look at things. Case in point, when we start talking about those who help light the match, these bogus DEI organizations who say that they're about diversity, equity, and inclusion and really are not doing anything to really mend the gap, to bring people together, but are pocketing dollars and they are capitalizing off of the division, you lit the match. These people who side with one thing only, meaning you side and say, yeah, blue lives matter, but you don't say anything when the black lives die. Let me tell you something. It has been black people who live blue lives who also died by the same bullet because they didn't know once that uniform come off. To this day, black women still die at a higher rate giving birth than any other demographic. To this day. So when you want to talk about something, if you really want to pull something, my Christian people, we'll do that. Or my people who believe in the Abrahamic covenants. So any of those people, there's something that said in 1 Kings, it said, how long will you stay between two opinions? It said, how long will you stay between two opinions? Either God is your Lord or Baal is your Lord. Here's the switch. Baal means Lord. So what he was really saying, how long will you stay between two opinions? If Lord is your God or if Lord is your God? Because what has happened is we have blurred the line so much, we don't know truth from fiction. And so we sit here and try to say, oh, we do this nuance-driven type thing, where we would say, well, this is that. Well, if this is that, why does this not apply to you when you do that? So how long will you stand between two opinions? Then it goes to my other favorite. The world is in chaos because a double-minded man is unstable in all his ways.
All right now.
Having two opinions, you're going to be double-minded and you're going to have chaos. And we're living in chaos. You can't play it safe no more. You have to stand up. And when you know something is not right, it's not right. I lost my job for speaking up for something that's not right. And guess what? I will continue to speak up for things that are not right. I'm not afraid of that. Ask my wife. She wanted to leave. We were about to have a whole divorce because we jeopardize everything for what is right. But I'd rather sleep on a haystack than sleep in a comfortable bed and can't deal with my own consciousness.
Yes.
It's time for you to stand up. If you're really tired, do something about it. Every white person that always asks, well, how can we help? Stop denying that you have privilege and use your privilege to help bring up the ones who don't have privilege.
Right. Exactly.
Stop donating to those organizations that you know who are part of the problem. Stop allowing certain conversations to go on and say, oh, we're just joking and jiving. Hate don't know the difference between joking and jiving.
Ooh, yeah.
We got to stop doing that. If you truly want to heal and move forward, stop lying and stop playing with yourself. Because every time you lie and play with yourself, you're playing with somebody else's life who don't have that luxury. So how long will you stand between two opinions? You're killing us. Literally. All of us. And stuff like that that is happening that lets you know nobody respects even what we stand on. Even the Constitution that you said before blacks were even included in it, they don't even respect that Constitution. So how long will you stay between two opinions? Either you're going to be a patriot or you're going to be a patriot. But I can be pro-black and still be a patriot.
Yeah.
I can fight for my brothers and sisters and still be a patriot. You need to decide what you're going to be because you blurring the lines. And blurring the lines is causing people to die. We done made it to that hour mark. I'm sorry.
Hey, man.
I'm sorry.
I need to give you time.
long time ago. I'm like, man, that spaceship sure did look good going up. Oh man, there it goes. There's the atmosphere. It's going. Oh,
I'm sorry. Normally, this is where we do positive brother shout out, but instead of doing positive brother shout out, will we acknowledge a way that we can move forward together? Can y'all do that for me? Sean, you take it since you're right here by us.
Well, I'm sorry. What was I was reading Reginald's chat in there, so I really like what he was saying. So yeah.
He said it's a challenge to talk about the effects of racism when individuals don't recognize or pretend there isn't an issue.
Correct.
So my shout out will be to Reginald because I want to talk about that issue. I mean, that's the core of it, Jay, and that's why I started asking you so many questions and reaching out to you and things like that, is because I think a lot of people, myself included, but thankfully Jay gave me permission to kind of ask some of the hard questions and fumble with maybe some of my, if not aware of, cultural differences or things that I was saying, it's kind of to kind of, hey, what does this mean? What's going on here? Things like that. So I think, absolutely a lot of white people won't even acknowledge that there is an issue with racism. I know it because I hang out with people, but a lot of it, I think too, is not necessarily because they don't want to know. A lot of white people are terrified of saying or doing the right thing around, Black, brown, or minority people. So they're because they're so scared to say anything, the best thing they think they can do is just say nothing and just hide until it's safe. And I think that a chance to heal, we have chances here, but we're going to have to create places where people can ask uncomfortable questions for both Black and brown people and probably white people, because if we don't create a space where we can have those conversations, it's going to be hard to kind of figure out what we're talking about. So thank you, Reginald, for that question, for that statement.
Okay, Carla.
Well, I think I'll just talk about white people, since I am one. I think we have to learn history that we were never taught. I think we have to acknowledge that history and not say that people are trying to rewrite history. No, history has already been rewritten, okay, to be a bunch of lies. And so we need to learn what actual history was, and acknowledge that and embrace that. Our country was not built on roses and sunshine, okay? It was built on the blood and the death of all of these Black people and indigenous people. Okay, and we have to accept that. Other countries have acknowledged the genocide that they have done. Germany acknowledges the genocide of the Holocaust, yet we don't even call slavery or the Trail of Tears, we don't call any of that genocide, okay? And so first of all, we have to acknowledge that. We also have to listen to other perspectives that are not our own and listen to other people's stories that we have not experienced. How are you going to tell somebody, oh, that didn't really happen? That doesn't really matter, okay? When I'm a breast cancer survivor, and when I would tell people that I had breast cancer, if someone said to me, oh, well, that's not important, okay, that didn't really happen to you, I think I would have busted them in the face, okay? And so I don't want to diminish racism, but how are you going to tell somebody that their history or their stories are not real, are not true, are not significant, have not shaped this entire country for what it is? And so I think those are the two most important things that we have to do as white people.
Kerwin?
I'm kind of lost on the question, man. Just listening to everybody.
You better stop looking at the comments. First of all, y'all gotta disregard share crazy.
I'm just learning about the comments on the side. I had mine on private chat the whole time, so then I hit it. I'm
like, yeah, y'all disregard sharing. But Nikita says she works for a company that has courageous conversations. That they have these talks between other white colleagues and Black and brown colleagues, and it's amazing. Also, Cheryl said white people can't be afraid to make mistakes. Here are some resources created by white people for white people on being anti-racist. Wow, thank you for that.
That's dope. Thank you.
Thank you for that. But the question is, what are some things we can do now, brother, to help us heal forward? It's right there in front of your lip. Healing forward.
Okay, so what we must first do is acknowledge. I'm gonna go back to what I said to reemphasize. We got to acknowledge there's a problem first. Before we can even move forward, before you can heal, it's like if you have a cut, right, and you don't realize you got a cut and you bleeding profusely and you about to die, but you never acknowledge that you had the cut, or you paying attention, you acting like the cut don't exist. So you throw a little Band-Aid over something that needs stitches, and it's the same kind of concept that's been applying right here in America for years when it comes to particular having this conversation. A lot of people are shy from the elephant in the room because the truth hurt, and the truth is that the United States and the inception and the fabric of this country was built on racism, and as Carla said, off the backs of Black people since the root and the foundation. And so we have to talk about this root that is embedded in every stitch and system of our society right here in America. And until we be honest and have these honest and candid conversations, we can't move forward. Because I can't sit in a room with you and you acting like this privilege don't exist, or act like these type of injustices are not happening, or say you don't. Well, I don't see the brutality that's plaguing the Black community. We can't have no conversation because you're not coming from a place of truth. And if you are, your place of truth is built on the foundation of lies and just pure fabrication of lies, man. And so, like, before we can move anywhere, we must first have an honest conversation and acknowledgement that there is a problem with racism right here in America. And it is two type of justice system, and then we can proceed forth and say, okay, well, this is the problem, so now here's solutions to these problems. But if we don't take the first step in acknowledging the problem, we can't get to no solutions. And that's that.
Wow, guys, my niece was tuning in. Siobhan, that's my oldest niece, man, and she tuned in.
Hey, Siobhan.
Hey, Siobhan. She said she really enjoyed the conversation, and thank you all for that. Wow. And your grandma here too, so call her. But go ahead, Emanuel.
I think I'm going to pretty much echo what Carla and a little bit of what Carla and Kerwin was saying. You know, my issue or concern is I think the only way that we're going to be able to move forward is people have to eliminate the mentality of being willfully ignorant. You know, willful ignorance is when somebody's telling you their perspective, they're telling you something's wrong and you're ignoring it, willfully ignoring it because you don't want to see their perspective. You don't want to see through their lens. You know, Black people have been telling people for years that there's a problem, but people have chosen on purpose to ignore that there's a problem. And until you eliminate the willful ignorance, we're not going to be able to move forward because you got to be able to identify that there is a problem. And if you don't know that if you're not identifying a problem, then how are you going to speak truth to that problem? You know, I just have an issue with people they just refuse to see it from your perspective. I'm telling you, it's about like someone that they're telling you that they're dying. And what would help them is can you just give me a drink of water? Or can you know, my solution is that if you would just give me this water right here, I'll live. But if you ignore the fact that I'm telling you I need water, you're just going to let me die. So I got a real issue with people that are willfully ignorant. They don't want to hear nothing you got to say. You're telling them what's wrong, but yet they want to ignore it. We got to eliminate that.
Yeah.
Well, I'm just going to follow up on that, Emanuel. I think part of the problem is white people have never had to be in the position where their every move was watched. Okay, where they were afraid to go to the store at night. Okay, And it makes them really uncomfortable to think about that. I think the majority of people would agree that racism is horrible, but they don't want to think about the fact that it still exists because it makes them uncomfortable. And they're not comfortable with being uncomfortable. And so we're going to have to get to the place where we can acknowledge some of these things, all of these things that are ugly, and deal with it, because Black and brown people have been living with it their whole lives. And we can't deal with it enough to learn about it. That's just unacceptable.
I definitely agree.
I agree with that. Let me say one more thing, and I promise I'll be quiet. When those officers that choked out Eric Garner, they were willfully ignorant. He was telling them he couldn't breathe. The officer that had his knee on the neck of George Floyd for 8 minutes and 46 seconds, he said, I'm hurting. I looked at the transcript. I looked at it on YouTube, and he was pleading for his life for probably about 5 minutes. Mm-hmm. And the other part of it, he just went blank because we saw the life leave him right there in front of us. And so I'm saying all of this to say is that we're telling you something's wrong, but you're ignoring it, and we're dying. I have a problem with that.
Yeah, absolutely.
That was my existential crisis that led me to become good friends with Jay.
I appreciate it, bro. You're a great friend too.
Yeah.
But go ahead. I'll say my name.
Oh, what I would say as far as things that we can do to heal forward, I would say one is this is for everybody, just to be solution oriented and to actually, put in work. It's one thing to say that, you're tired of things that are happening and you don't like it and it's terrible, and then go and just disconnect and go do something. But to really say that, and then to, connect other people who are also tired and who want to actually institute changes and tell another thing entirely. So I would say that for everyone to be solution oriented and to, find, and to actually do something about it is first and foremost. I would say to those who are privileged, which frankly we're talking about white people, I would say that would be the thing I would say to help heal forward is to remove yourself from when the conversation of injustices and racism and all that stuff comes up. Remove yourself from the equation and remove the need to separate yourself from the quote unquote bad ones. When marginalized groups of people are talking about, that they're being oppressed and that they're being discriminated against, it doesn't help the conversation or any efforts to discuss with them or rationalize how you yourself specifically are not one of the bad ones. That doesn't help anything. They still get marginalized. They still are discriminated against and oppressed after you say that. That doesn't help anything. You're not actually helping anything. So I would say to take your feelings out of it and recognize, like we said before, that you do have privilege. And if you're not using that privilege to help the oppressed, then you're not helping. That would be, that's really all that there is. If you're not gonna do that, then you really are okay with what's going on, because taking no stance is a stance. So
Cheryl said that she works. Thank you for that, bro. At our organization, it's a mission that is committed to racial equity, and we have racial equity task force and use white supremacy values to guide our working conversations. This is a good place to start. Thank you for sharing that. And Cheryl, I would be remiss if I didn't also let you know that Love is a Parable is a great place to start as well. Mm-hmm. We actually have a love advocacy training that starts on the 25th. There's still time. We actually are offering it at a discounted rate, and this will get an opportunity to really uncover and unpack. It'll be 8 weeks, so it won't be rushed, and this will give you an opportunity to uncover differently. Equally, for those who are also looking for success in fulfillment, because we talk about purpose and fulfillment a lot. We also offer a video that actually have 3 dynamic speakers of them, but actually covering 3 different degrees of success so that you can actually attain fulfillment. The other thing is we also have the Brother Empowerment Podcast. So please join us there. For those who want to listen to this later, we will try to download this and get it over there ASAP. But also what's most important, guys, is that we are a solution-based organization, and we believe in being a safe space for all humans to have conversations. The one thing that is different is the leadership team actually has 20 years of experience in behavior and mental health, along with andragogy experience as well. And so we bring all of those different dynamics to provide a safe haven for people to have conversations that are not traditionally accepted, but lead to positive outcome. Everyone who has taken our program have left saying, why didn't I know about this sooner? And our thing doesn't just focus on on racial equity. We focus on appreciation of everyone on everything that they bring to the table. And we help people identify restrictive thinking, assumptive thinking, restrictive ideologies, and limited beliefs that hinder you from being the best that you can be, but also hinder you from making meaningful, impactful relationships. But we can work together, Cheryl. So please reach out to us, because we welcome them all. Just like we work with Carla and her organization, we work with Kerwin and his organization, we work with Emanuel. Sean about to join the team. He already done took some of the classes. We just need to get him in a few more. He's about to join it. We believe in doing this together, and the collective we is also collective organizations who are striving for a positive solution. But guys, it's been heavy, and we only had technically an hour, but when you get passionate people on here, we're gonna go a little bit over.
Yeah.
But this conversation is nowhere near over. So if you guys want to partner with us, please reach out and we can continue this conversation going. And we will plan another day to have this conversation, and hopefully not only have the people we have here, but get more people engaged in the conversation as well. You can find all information about us at loveisapparable.com. Yes, we're on all social media platforms, #loveisapparable. You will find us. But what's most importantly, if you feel that you are in a place where you feel that no one cares about you and no one loves you, you have just met, help me figure this out, six people. You just met 6 people who truly love you and who are truly here for you and want to see you healing forward. Okay? Hey, panel, we're going to ask you guys to stay on, but everyone else, we will see you next week. Have a wonderful
Cheryl. Goodbye, Cheryl.
Goodbye, Cheryl. Goodbye, everyone.
No matter what they say, we good over this way. This is positivity in the making, helping others to break through.